All right, Kate, to start things off, I like understanding the franchise story. How do you even fall into franchising? So lead me up into that, and then we'll get into the business. What's your franchise story?
Okay, thank you, Nick. So I started Raw Replenish. We are a plant-based cafe, but I actually started the business with the intention of doing raw cold press juicing. And I started the business in 2016 out of my home garage. I got it inspected to with a limited food establishment permit to legally sell raw juices, ship them regionally, deliver them locally. And I specialized in supplementary wellness juices and also cleanses. So that's how it started. I was a fitness instructor part-time at the local YMCA at the time. And I was a stay-at-home mom. And it kind of grew from there. It went from bringing juices to my classes, having people sample them, giving me feedback. And one customer, one by one, people were really enjoying not only the juice cleanses, but the taste of the juices. They were experiencing benefits from them. And they said, you should really grow into doing more. How about smoothies? How about wraps? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't have any culinary background. But there was a demand for it, and we didn't have anything like it in my hometown area. So after about 3 months of working out of my home garage, I moved into my first commercial kitchen space about 2 miles from my home. And it just grew from there. Within a year, I moved into a brick and mortar, got it inspected as a limited or no longer a limited food establishment, into a fully functioning restaurant business with the products that you're showing right here: acai bowls, wraps, all plant-based. And 3 years after that, I met with Steve over at SMB and started talking about franchising. And he's like, you're not quite ready yet, but give me a call back in a year. And in a year, I opened up my second location, and he's like, yep, you're ready. Let's do this. And within 6 months, I was introduced to Internacola Law Firm. They did my FDD. I have a wonderful relationship with them. And here we are 10 units later.
That's
in the first year.
And how many of those 10, how many of those are franchisees now?
So there is 4 franchisees of the 10.
Okay. Love it.
Yep.
Okay. So a bunch that I want to unpack from that story. So when you're setting up this garage business, are you dreaming big, or is it like, I know I can make a difference even with your client base of people that you're doing training with. But are you dreaming big at that point, or is it more of a hobby?
Definitely, Nick, more of a hobby. Extremely passionate about wellness, fitness, serving people in the community. Again, I'm not coming from a culinary background. So a lot of it was just doing personal research. My background's actually in psychology, and I do have some certifications in fitness and nutrition, but it truly was passion. And just seeing the demand and getting the feedback and building those relationships in the community, still to this day, is that's where it's at. Is, we can teach you how to make acai bowls and give you all the education on juicing and the benefits of juicing, but building those relationships, not only with my franchisees, but it all started with those relationships with my customers, building that trust in the brand, having those relationships where we do go the extra mile. And empathy and humility are like the 2 main ingredients that are a big part of my brand. And I, as a customer, places that if you go into a drive-through line, you're not getting that. You're getting a quick service. You may get a good product, but you're not ever able to connect with that person. And I feel that we've started, I started in a small town, and a lot of our franchise units are in very small towns. That building those relationships are everything. The success upon the business itself is about those relationships. So that's where I really get excited is connecting with people and building those relationships.
All right. So were you personally plant-based before this?
Everybody asks that question. No. And if we're being completely transparent here, I'm married to a hunter. So I originally referred to the business as a vegan brand. And I learned quickly as vegan customers came in and they asked me that question. And I said, no, I said, I eat about 80 to 85% plant-based. But I do incorporate some venison and some grass-fed meats into my diet. And I got a lot of pushback on that. So, and I was like, well, my husband hunts and it's land preservation and things like that. And oh no, that wasn't good. So we switched to the plant-based brand versus a vegan brand. And I actually feel too that transparency. The majority of my customers aren't plant-based, but they want to start to incorporate more plant-based foods into their diet. And I think that decreases that level of intimidation that they have with me. I can connect them to say, I'm not 100% plant-based myself, but I can help you get to where I am, or even get you just 1% more.
Well, I mean, even if you take the term raw and you say what your husband does, and you're talking about venison, like the reality is if you're hunting your own meats, then there is still some rawness to that process. It hasn't been processed through all the things that could cause other additional health challenges that come alongside it. So I see some parallel in that. And frankly, I think, and I want to go backwards in time on this, but plant-based has obviously turned into part of the norm. If we go back to when you're starting the business, you don't go into a restaurant and see Beyond Burger on the menu when you start this company. And now it's on there. And whether it's people perceiving it's healthier, or it's people saying, I want to incorporate plant-based into my diet, it doesn't have to be the be-all, end-all. It's an interesting place. And I also think what you said is, and I've seen the community, like the vegan community is a vegan community. So you're like, in a lot of cases, you're either with us or you're against us. And I do think you bridging in some gray area to say, hey guys, it's okay to not go fully all the way. Like you can still process into this is fascinating. So just your whole story there is interesting to me.
Thank you. Yeah, you're exactly right. It's the we don't serve any meat or any dairy products. You can go across the street and grab a burger, pizza, or whatever, but it just gives another option for those people that have faced, I've served a lot of customers have faced a lot of chronic illness, including cancers. We're seeing a lot of cancers in young people nowadays. And again, it's at no fault to them. I mean, there's a genetic factor, there's environmental factors, but there is, we specialize in more of the dietary support for people going through chemotherapy and treatments. Juicing is an excellent way of supporting digestive health and immune health. So we do drive a lot of education on those health benefits. And I put a lot of time into research into that, into the research, because it's important to give customers, there's not a lot of, Western medicine has a lot of, they don't have a lot of nutrition guidance. There's a lot of medicinal approaches, which are absolutely important, but supporting the body through, these types of the illnesses and diseases is exactly what we're there for in a small town, especially.
Another thing that I want to unpack a little bit more is you said I studied psychology. And so there's two aspects that you needed to use when it came to forming your business. One was you mentally being strong enough to say, I'm going to navigate not only starting a business in my garage, but then carrying it through, being told, which was probably a responsible thing by SMB to say, you're not ready. So being told that, scaling and saying, I'm going to make this happen, scaling to 2 units, and then all the way through to where psychology is very important. So you have your first 4 franchisees saying, I believe in the business that you've created. I want to invest my life savings for an opportunity to build wealth for my family into your company. There's a lot of psychological warfare that happens in that entire process of being a business owner and then being a franchise. How have you been able to lean back on that and use that as a leveraging point for how you've been able to build some of this early success?
Plays a huge role. And especially in, as I mentioned before, the empathy and the understanding and meeting people where they are in their health journeys. I feel like initially when we came out as a vegan cafe, people didn't feel like that they wouldn't have been welcome there because they're not vegan. They didn't feel, some of the feedback I got is that there wouldn't be something for me, or I wouldn't like it, or I would be judged based on my lifestyle. So we quickly, even in employing, hiring my first employees, is to really reassure people that they are welcome here, and we're here to educate, and we're here again to meet them where they are, to have, we provide a lot of samples in our cafe. You're not just committed to a $9 juice. Here's try it first. Here are the benefits. Lean in. What are they looking for? Getting to, instead of being on a platform of just educating the customer, listen to them, figure out what it is that they want, and take that feedback and give them a recommendation. That listening part is so crucial. Prior to being a stay-at-home mom, I worked for about 15 years with adults that were dually diagnosed with developmental disabilities and also mental illness. And through that process, I learned how important the listening is, because when I first got started, and what you learn in school was different behavioral techniques and things like that. But that listening, at the end of the day, the listening is the most important part. Is, we all love to talk. We all love to be interviewed and share our stories, but people can see through the business owner that is trying to sell their product versus the business owner that truly cares what the outcome is going to be. When the customer has an experience with a supplementary juice, how did you feel? Was your digestion okay? Did you not like it? Be honest. I want to customize this product so you get the benefit from it.
I mean, that's awesome. I mean, like, just the fact that your entire story and everything that you did up into this point is now led into franchising. I think that's deeply critical. So now comes the business model, and it's a competitive marketplace when you're competing for someone's dollars. When it comes to food or eating healthy or wellness, it's a competitive marketplace. How have you found you've been able to stand out, and what ends up being your point of differentiation?
How do we stand out from competitors? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
What makes us different? A lot of plant-based cafes in our area, and even larger franchise brands, for an example, there is a limited menu, or there is a mixed menu. There's usually some dairy products in the menu. So they're catering toward the product and reaching the masses with that product, because they have some meat and cheese on the menu, but they also have, so they're kind of, have a broader approach. Where at Raw Replenish, it may take us a little bit longer to grow, but I keep saying it, but going back to building those relationships with people and staying strictly plant-based. We're not gonna steer from that. We're gonna stay plant-based. That's what we are. That's where we find that our customers have the best experiences with our products. And it's establishing that trust in the integrity and the product as well, versus just blasting the masses and having kind of a mixed menu of your traditional foods that you can get at any restaurant, and then having your juices. I feel like that it's a bit confusing, because then what is true health? We believe that true health is primarily plant-based. But we're not going to judge. I certainly, I eat meat as well. And I also like sugars and cakes and bakery foods as well. So, and we do have we have organic, dairy-free baked goods in some of our locations. So we have a little dabbling of that, but we're not going too far off. And that really is what keeps us separate from and more competitive with other brands that are doing something similar.
What's the dream now? You've gotten first 4 franchisees in. What's the dream?
Nick, I'm just redoing my math. Is I said 4 in the beginning. There's actually 6 with the 10 units. Yes.
6 franchisees. Even better. Dream's already coming too.
Yes. This is, as you said, 4 a couple of times. I'm like, I said 4. Why did I say 4 in the beginning?
6. So
a little bit of the stage fright here.
Yeah. No,
So I'm sorry, what was the question?
What's the dream now? I mean, you're starting to gain some momentum. What's the big picture?
I really, as far as goals and projections and things like that, we have an out of state. We have one in Alabama, and the other units are all, within 10 miles of each other in Pennsylvania. It was a complete, Alabama, Southern Alabama, in the deep South of all places. How did you meet her? She found us on social media. She was looking for niche. She wasn't looking for the meats and the dairy and the both types of products. She wanted something more niche like what we're doing. So she did her research, and we fell in love with the family. We fell in love with the cute little boutique town down in Monroeville, Alabama. But getting back to your question, the growth strategy is to get into New Jersey and Delaware and start to sprawl from there. It wasn't to start going down south. But for me, a real dream and a real passion, and the way I think of growth with the franchise, is meeting like-minded franchisees. It is so incredibly important to have really good relationships with the franchisees, because we do become a family. It is like a marriage, is what I say. We have to be connected. We have to have the same vision in terms of how we serve our customers. If you're coming into the organization with the mindset of it's product driven and it's all about the products and it's all about those sales, then this isn't the right business for you. I'm looking for people that value empathy, value humility, and also value putting in the work into themselves, personal development. Get 15 minutes of podcasts a day. Living out the lifestyle. Start to make little changes within your own lifestyle to improve your overall well-being, your mind, body, all of it. I can't see myself getting into a network of, eventually probably a broker network, but I really want to know and have relationships with these people that are coming into the organization. I want them to be involved in their day-to-day operation. So that is where I see Raw Replenish growing, is with people that are on board.
Well, I think that's a huge message, and I'm going to pivot over into my advice portion of this. Success begins with a delicious opportunity is not a why you, why now. Building a family of people who want to make a difference in their community is. And what I just heard from you is you said, I'm going to protect this brand by only putting in people in here that really want to have impact. And you talk about cancer, and you talk about health benefits, and you talk about modifications, and that the impact is greater than you're taking credit for. And so if I were you, I would look back at this and say, would I understand what the culture of the business is if I read this message? And I would imagine the answer is no. And so I think you should lift that up, because my next question is, if there's a ghost candidate out there looking at the business, what do you want them to know? And I mean, I'm going to bullet point number one. If you're looking for more than just a franchise, you start here. Like you're saying, I'm going to have your back in a different way than, any other widget franchise is going to have. But what else do you want them to know about the business opportunity?
I like that. That's actually, I really, really appreciate that. Because I didn't look at it. As soon as you read that out loud and I'm looking at it, that is the first thing on that landing page that they are seeing. And it isn't, as you said, I have not talked about how delicious our products are once, because the other things are more important. We do have delicious products, but you're right. The opportunity is in those relationships. It's everything else comes by default. So thank you for that, Nick. I appreciate that. I'm going to talk to my website guy about that, because I didn't even consider that.
Well, I mean, even on that message, if you put on there, we'll talk about the product later. First, we talk about our culture. Like that guides you into the story that you want to tell. But I think every franchise brand gets stuck in the widget, but the widget is none of this stuff even really matters. Like you're skipping over what matters, and that's like in this limited life that we live, if you're going to make the choice to put your career and your wealth in your own hands, then who are you looking to do it with?
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like Kate's story, which is in here to some degree, ends up being you're burying the lead. And so if I were you, I would say we'll talk about the product later. And frankly, they've already seen it because they've probably fell in love with it. They either are finding you because they've looked for plant-based franchise opportunities. They've tried your product in one of the markets. They've taken a pathway to get their product is already a check mark. Now it's about culture fit and business model,
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's, and that is, I'm looking to get some franchise testimonies on this website because I feel they are the true testimony to the experience. And they all, with the exception of our out-of-state franchisee, they were all customers first. Okay. And that's how I envision it to continue to grow, is through these locations that they've already tasted the product. They know it's delicious. Now, really diving into who they are as people and what their values are and what matters the most to them. And if they're interested in this opportunity, that it is, the heart has to be in it. Mm-hmm.
Where did those original 6 come from?
They were all customers.
Yep. That's usually where it comes from. So yep. I'll end on this last question. You reflect backwards, and SMB said pause on franchising. Mm-hmm. Did that end up being the right advice? And as you reflect backwards on it, like how do you reflect backwards on that moment?
100%. And Steve Biegelman said it very lovingly. If anything, it gave me a little bit of a, okay, just wait. I'm coming back. I'll show you. It gave me a little bit of an edge, but he did say it very lovingly, and gave me some advice. And I am glad, because actually it was, the pandemic hit then. So even, and I was just navigating. A lot of my staff had to leave. They're younger. Their parents didn't feel comfortable with them working. They did come back after a couple weeks, but I had to, if I was in the middle of franchising or had just launched the franchise at that point, I don't think I would have had the traction that I've had and the momentum. Every time we announce a new franchise opening, that is when I'm getting the influx of interest. Tell me about franchising. Can we sit and meet? Tell me more about this opportunity. So I do feel like there was a bigger thing going on in the background, why that timing wasn't right. But from his perspective, I was still working in the business 40, 50, sometimes 60 hours a week. So one of the things he said to me is getting a manager, involved and training her and getting her to run the show, so you can be working on the business versus in the business. So I did that. I took that advice, and I have a full-time manager, and I recommend that all my franchisees start out with at least a part-time manager. So that has helped part of, as far as operations go, that really has helped me build out that operating manual.
Love it. Well, Kate, I really do appreciate you sharing your story. I look forward to hearing where it goes. I mean, at the end of the day, you're just at the beginning. 6 franchisees is a great starting point. You're out of the gates. You got the momentum, and let's push play back on this video in a year from now and see how far you've come. But thanks for sharing your story. I really, really appreciate it.
Thanks
Kate,
for the interview and the time, Nick. I really appreciate it. This was fun.
For Kate, I'm Nick. This is another episode of Meet the Zor. Take care, everybody.